What's up, gamers? It's your boy JKon. Welcome to another video. Sorry that I've been a bit MIA, but I hope you've been enjoying Masters Madrid as much as I have, because let me tell you, this tournament has been an absolute banger. I'm working on a project right now that'll kind of cover what's been going on, so stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, since the playoff stage is about to arrive, I thought that I'd just give you a little bit of content, giving my thoughts so far on the tournament, and of course my pick'ems for the playoffs. If you're new to the channel, welcome. If you're not, welcome back. Please like, comment, subscribe, and all that jazz, as it does really help me out a lot, and I appreciate it very much. I didn't get co-streaming rights for Masters Madrid, so I have just been VOD reviewing on my Twitch channel at twitch.tv/JKonTV. So if you want to watch the games with me as I kind of VOD review and just waffle about life, feel free to hop in whenever I'm live and come and hang out. Anyways, without further delay, let's get into it. Okay, let's just start out with how the tournament began. Of course, we had the opening Swiss stage where there was no interregional matchups, where every first seed would face off against every second seed. And funnily enough, we would see every first seed take their victory, and that's not super surprising as they are quote unquote the stronger teams coming from their regions, but nonetheless the matches were still very exciting. The tournament kicked off with Carmine Core taking down FPX in a 2-0 fashion. It actually was a very competitive 2-0. FPX were able to take a lot of leads and showcase their unique play style, and overall they had a pretty okay series. They didn't have the best series, but they definitely showcased their firepower, especially Life. He was able to secure the first ace of the tournament on Icebox playing Reyna. But I think the star of the show overall would have to be Narrate, as he absolutely popped off on the JKon fade, putting up 47, 28, and 20 with 300 ACS in his international debut. Pretty freaking crazy. Gotta shout out to him because he's already proven that he's pretty freaking good on the world stage. Next up, we have Gen G taking on Loud, and this was actually a very interesting matchup. One of the things that we'll see from Loud is that they would bait Gen G into picking Breeze, a map that Loud has permabanned throughout the entire kickoff tournament, and now they have unveiled their cards here on the international stage. And funnily enough, that was the only map that Loud were able to win, and they took it quite convincingly, even though I think Gen G's comp is quite unique and has some things that they needed to work on. I thought it was really cool. They had this really sick pistol round play on attack where they would have JKon recall stars to have the Yoru teleport in, as well as the Jet updraft dashing onto the pillar. And unfortunately they didn't win the pistol round, but I thought that was really cool. Overall, this was just an incredible series. I have to say that Gen G completely dismantled Loud's Descent comp. They switched QCK to playing Yoru instead of the Phoenix, which they had been running previously, and it didn't look too hot overall. One of the things that definitely stands out from Gen G for sure from this matchup is that JKon is so consistent. He's actually absurd, and Texture, rightfully so, should be seen as one of the top duelists in the region, as he carried his team across the line. EDG versus Paper Rex was a very interesting electric boogaloo. Of course, we've had this matchup multiple times before, and this would be the fourth time that these teams would face off. EDG would finally get their revenge on Paper Rex, taking the series 2-1, claiming the final two maps of the series, dropping Sunset to Paper Rex. Now, that's not a slight at all, because Paper Rex's Sunset is very good, if not one of the best in the world. I think the comp that they are running with having the Sage instead of a duelist is quite unique, and I really enjoy how they use the Sage walls to get onto sites as well as post plant positions, and we got to see some very fun creativity PRX shenanigans between Device Wall and Munyet's Omen. Bind was pretty much all in EDG's control despite losing both pistol rounds, and even though nobody had a quite terrible map, his team definitely made up for it and carried him over the line. But nobody wouldn't let that get him down, as he would put up incredible numbers on splits, as he and Kong would combine to carry their team over the line, and were able to take the series over Paper Rex, proving to everybody that you can't beat EDG 4 times in a row. The final opening matchup from the Swiss stage would give us Sentinels versus Team Heretics, the hometown team, and this was a very exciting matchup. To be honest, Team Heretics really high had a lot of momentum at the beginning stages of the game. In Lotus, they took a strong 8-4 half despite losing the pistol round, but Sentinels were able to really show their resiliency, completely dominating their attack half, only dropping one round in order to take the map. Sunset, on the other hand, was an absolute masterclass from Team Heretics. Both of these teams could be seen as some of the best teams that played Sunset so far, and Team Heretics were able to just absolutely retake on Sentinels post plants pretty much every single time. Rian's and Miniboo would have multiple multi-kill rounds, just really displaying and showcasing their talent and aim, and we got to see the full extent of Team Heretics set plays as they were able to crack open sites and retakes with their combinations of utility. Bind, on the other hand, was an absolute giga banger between the two teams. We would have Team Heretics start off really hot, taking a 6-1 lead before Sentinels again were able to regain composure and close out the half 6-6. And in the first 7 rounds of the second half, they were able to secure 5 of them. JKon went absolutely nuclear in this matchup and really proved why he is one of the best duelist players, if not the best duelist player at this event, and he sunned everybody, really taking his team over the line. One of the things that I thought was so funny just from this matchup in general was that JKon team killed John with his rocket, but despite the sacrifice, he was able to close out both of the rounds for his team and get them over the line, so you can't fault him there for the sacrifice. Honestly, I really think that the opening matchups were just really hype. Every single one went to 3 maps outside of Carmine Core and FPX, and I think that's pretty good considering what you can ask for from an opening stage. We would also have to consider the matchup between KC and FPX was competitive. It wasn't a stomp at all, so overall a great start to the tournament. Moving on to the teams who will move on to playoffs, we had the 1-0 stage coming up, and we have Sentinels having to have a quick turnaround, being the last team to play the night before and the first team to play the next day. But that didn't face Sentinels as they were able to take it to the rookie upstarts in Carmine Core and 2-0 them. Tens and JKon would combine like Kobe and Shaq and have an absolute masterclass of a series. Tens would put up 42, 21, and 28 with 260 ACS, and JKon would put up 41, 30, and 7 with 254 ACS. Both of these players just went absolutely insane and really carried their team over the line. On split, it was absolutely apparent with how much impact both of these players were having. And if you look at the kill charts, 2 of the players combined for 14 more kills than the other 3 on their team combined, which is absolutely absurd. Sentinel's split, especially their retake, has to be something to be really concerned about if you're any other team in this tournament, as they are looking like the best split team right now. Lotus would be another giga banger of a map. This is Carmine Core's bread and butter, a map that they are very well known for, and one of the things that they are especially known for on this map is sacking their sites and retaking. This is something that Sentinels were able to take advantage of for the most part and just nearly edge out Carmine Core in the end. You would have amazing heroics from Narrate and Martine coming out from them, incredible clutches from Shin, but at the end of the day, it wasn't enough as Tens once again would top the charts, putting up 22 kills and 251 ACS, but his IGL John was right there with him, putting up 21 frags and 266 ACS. I think if this matchup really had to show anything is that Sentinels are a very competitive team that has a pretty strong map pool that they were able to show throughout this tournament. Now granted, they haven't played an Icebox or a Breeze necessarily, but the way that they have been able to consistently get these maps that they are strong on in their map pick ban is an advantage that people should consider. So in the playoff matchup, we'll have to kind of consider that depending on the matchup. Going on to EDG versus Gen G, this was an interesting matchup to say the least. Icebox was Gen G's pick, a map that they are traditionally strong on, and it just did not go their way. Kong and Nobody were just hitting absolute shots, and despite Charon having incredible clutches and just pulling out rounds and just being amazing as he has been consistently showing throughout the tournament, EDG were able to stronghold and take the map 13-8 after an 8-4 half. Split, on the other hand, was a completely another story. Meteor and Texture just absolutely exploded all over EDG. Pause. And EDG could do absolutely nothing on the defensive end. Now granted, EDG were able to secure 5 rounds in that first half, but those are all the rounds that they were able to claim, 2 of which were the pistol and anti-eco, which is really tough. A number that you would want to consider for this matchup is that Texture put up 22 frags and 317 ACS, as well as Meteor, his duelist tandem, put up 22 frags and 315 ACS. Now compare that to EDG, only Kong was anywhere near those numbers, putting up 22, 15, 13-6 with 401 ACS. ChocoChip had absolutely absurd rounds, trying his best to keep his team in the game with multi-kills, 3Ks, 4Ks, and he went absolutely head-to-head with Texture to see who could one-up the other. And despite ChocoChip having better numbers, JKon would come out on top with just an absolutely impressive showing from them. And to close out this series from them, we would have Breeze. And Breeze was, I don't even want to say it was closer than Split, because I didn't even feel like it was. JKon's attack side was absolutely brutal. They would take an 11-1 lead going into the half and would close out the map 13-6, dropping 5 rounds at the beginning of the second half. Everybody was just absolutely hitting shots here. Meteor was going crazy on the Yoru, and this comp that JKon has been trying to play consistently on their Breeze has finally been rewarded with a victory, as it did look pretty good. But one of the things we have to consider is that this comp is very attack focused, so that's kind of why we would see the weakness come out against Loud, where they started on the defensive half. Overall, we got some fun showmanship from Lakia and Texture on stage, but this was kind of just an absolute obliteration once the second half of Split began. The 0-1 elimination matches that we would get were actually super fun and banger matches. Honestly, every single matchup for the most part throughout this entire tournament so far has been a banger, and FPX taking on Loud would not disappoint. We would get a Phoenix matchup on Sunset, where both teams love this pocket pick of the Phoenix, but unfortunately for the Chinese side, Loud are extremely good at retaking a site, and that is where they funneled FPX consistently and were able to retake over and over again. Loud would take an 8-4 half and close out the map 13-5, with Sadok topping the charts on the Sova, putting up 18-7-7 with 288 ACS, and my man looked like he was having a blast on stage. Breeze would once again make it through the pick ban, with Loud baiting FPX to take it, and Loud once again would take this map, but it was an absolute slugfest going back and forth. Each team was absolutely showcasing their aim, hitting absurd shots, with Les and Autumn going head to head against one another. Autumn looked quite good on the Yoru pick overall, and he was getting a lot of value throughout his teleports and opping on the pick, but it wasn't enough to overcome Loud, as they were able to close out the map with 3 back-to-back retakes, leaving the Australian with nothing to do but watch as his international experience would come to an end. And the final elimination match was between Team Heretics and Paper Rex, and let me tell you, this was probably the most hype match of the event so far. You had extreme trash talking going back and forth from both teams, with players standing up, talking shit, going back and forth at one another, yelling at each other. We basically had a canon event happen during this match, and it was just an absolute giga banger. We would get this beautiful picture from something, and I don't think any of these players should be apologizing for shit talking. It is part of the game. It is part of the event. When you're on stage in that environment, it is okay, but once you're off of it, shit talk's over. You know what I mean? That's my feeling of it. If you're in the game, you can do it. It's all good, but once you're out of the game, hey, GG's, man. That's how it do be. But anyways, let's go into the game and what I thought was just incredible. You had Sunset, Team Heretics home map pick, where they showed absolute dominance against Sentinels, and Paper Rex would once again prove why they are the better team, as they would take the map 13-10. Heretics would keep it very close early on, being able to retake consistently, giving us a 6-6 half, with again Rienz and Miniboo consistently showing off their absolute talent. Benji had insane rounds. He was able to secure 3 while tucked in Boba, and that's just absolutely absurd. But nonetheless, Paper X were able to take it over the line, showcasing their creativity once again with the Omen and Sage wall. And despite burning both their timeouts quite early in the match, they were still able to close it out. Lotus would also be an absolutely banger going back and forth, with Paper X taking the lead 4-1 after losing the pistol round, but Heretics were able to bounce back and closed out the half 7-5. Miniboo and Benji Fishy were absolutely frying throughout this map, and Paper X had incredible trouble just getting onto sites, as the combo of Miniboo and Benji Fishy were just anchoring incredibly well. The second half would start out with Paper X going hot, claiming 5 rounds, but it wasn't enough, as Benji Fishy and Rienz were able to close out the map, giving Team Heretics 4 in a row and taking us to Split. Now Split, I will have to tell you, was just absolute cinema. If there's one map that I think should be watched, it should be Split for sure from this tournament. I think Split will go down as one of the probably most memorable maps because of just everything that happened. Paper Rex would continue their pistol dominance, claiming both pistols in this map and overall 5 out of 6 in the series. But the big but here was Benji Fishy was having so much impact on A site. In the A site cubby, he would tuck there multiple rounds and get a 4K, a 4K, a 3K, just whatever you wanted, he got it. Benji Fishy would be absolutely feeling himself after this first round, and after round 8 he would give Moniette some very interesting words.
Off the back in such a short space of time. Filthy.
But those words were basically a canon event, and Moniette kind of took that personally, as he was able to clutch up a 1v2 situation to get Paper Rex back on the board, stabilizing them and securing a 6-6 half. The second half was split. Now let me tell you, it was all Forsaken. Paper Rex decided to switch up their comp this time, coming into split, shying away from the triple duelist that they were running previously, moving Forsaken over to the Raze, making his debut on the Raze, as well as putting Moniette on Omen and Devi on Skye. And let me tell you, Forsaken definitely had him moments, as he absolutely took over for Paper Rex and clearly was the best player on the server by the end of it, despite Benji's incredible first half. Unfortunately for the Brit, he would only get 3 kills in the second half, as he would end the map with 21 total, 18 of which were from his defensive side. Another thing that I just wanted to highlight that I just thought was so impressive for this out of Paper Rex was they again burnt both of their timeouts extremely early. The second one was burnt by the 8th round, and yet they were still able to stabilize and refocus. Whatever was said during that halftime, I don't know if Alex gave them Mike's magic juice or something, but they were revitalized and absolutely took over this map. I think there was a highlight round for pretty much every single one of these rounds, and you could really just point to almost any of them and be like, damn, that's a highlight movie. But overall, this was just an incredible series. I talked about this one a lot, but damn, it was freaking good. One of the people that I really wanted to highlight for sure was Something. I think he had a bounce back series. He didn't perform super well against EDG, but in this matchup he ended up 61, 40 and 13 with 267 ACS and a +10 first kills to first deaths with 14-4, which is absolutely absurd, and I feel vindicated as to why I rate him as one of the best players in the world. So deal with it. And last but not least, we'll just wrap out the Swiss stage where we have the 1-1 matchups to see who would get eliminated and who would make it to playoffs. Loud versus EDG was kind of a stomping from Loud. Loud only seeded 5 rounds total in this series, and yeah, it wasn't really close at all. There were a lot of situations where EDG were able to contest Loud, bringing the numbers of each team down to 1v1s, 1v2s, 2v2s, etc, or being forced to save while the other team has low numbers. So despite Loud out macroing them and outmaneuvering them, with Sadak having an absolute field day with it, EDG were still hitting shots, and that has to be commendable. I gotta shout out my boy Smoggy, who absolutely tried his best this series, was the best player for his team in this series, had an incredible 4K on Icebox, but it wasn't enough. Sunset was even less of a competition than Icebox, even though EDG got technically 1 more round, so I guess it's more competitive, but it felt like it was less. Loud just absolutely dominated on their retakes. QCK found his form and just absolutely farmed them. He put up 24 frags in 16 rounds, which is absurd. You can just see how Loud's utility and the way that they space between their utility to take over is just so good. EDG were forced to plant on A consistently, and Loud just absolutely took advantage of that, because again, Loud are one of the best A retake teams in the world. Can't really say much here. Loud having this absolute dominance on these 2 maps, as well as having a now secret pocket pick of Breeze being pretty decent, their map pool has to be very heavily considered heading into playoffs, and their form looks very good. The one downside that I have to say for my boys in EDG is that it's kind of a sad way to go out. After getting 5 rounds on their split defense, EDG kind of just got blown out in the rest of their maps. They got 6 on Breeze against Gen G, 2 on Icebox against Loud, and 3 on Sunset against Loud. And if my math is correct, that is 11 rounds won after the first half from 4 maps ago, and that is a really tough way to end out. You can see that their coordination was a little bit off, their utility sets weren't hitting as they normally did, and they just had a lot of macro issues overall. Kong still proved that he's a world-class player, but overall I think they still have room to improve, but it was definitely kind of a sad way to see EDG go out. And last but not least, we have the final matchup of the Swiss stage, where we have Paper Rex taking on Carmine Core, and You want to talk about bangers, bro? I mean, like, it's banger after banger after banger here. So Martin would put up some insane numbers throughout this series, and if you look at the kill count, it's kind of crazy. Martin had 62 frags, Nere had 55, and Magnum had 47. If you compare that to the top three from Paper Rex in this matchup, Something had 50, Forsaken 49, Monyet 49. So even though Karmine Corp won in the kills area, Paper Rex were still able to take it over the line. To open up the series, we really have to highlight Monyet on Bind, because after that cannon event, when Benji shouted at him, Monyet has actually stepped up his game and performed incredibly well. In their final map against Team Heretics, Monyet was just frying and fragging, and coming into this matchup, he kept that form and went head to head against Narrate in the Raze matchup and put up comparable numbers. Both duelists put up 20 frags, with Narrate putting up 268 ACS, with Monyet putting up 259. But this map for the most part would really be in Paper Rex's control. This is a map that they have a lot of experience on, but they also switch it up a little bit, putting Forsaken on Harbor instead of Yoru, which is an interesting shakeup to say the least. They would take an 8-4 first half, and coming into the second half, they would make it to map point by the 18th round, but KC were able to come back a little bit with some insane fragging from the duelist tandem. But Paper Rex were able to close it out in the 23rd round, taking their map pick. Heading over to Lotus, Karmine Corp once again continued to display how dominant they are on this map. Despite losing to Sentinels, they would absolutely control the narrative here against Paper Rex. Paper Rex would already be 2-0 in pistol rounds for the series, and that pistol dominance would continue into this matchup as well, as they would also claim both pistol rounds and anti-ecos. But unfortunately for them, those 4 rounds were 66% of all that they got, because Karmine Corp just absolutely stifled them on this map. Nere was absolutely popping off, carrying on that defensive end with Martin and Magnum, as Karmine Corp continued to execute their consistent game plan of packing together and retaking as a group, because their coordination and spacing to trade amongst one another is one of the best. And that's something that we've gotten to see showcased in front of us throughout this entire event and kickoff, which has been a blast. It definitely can be taken advantage of, as there are holes in the defense, and if a team's post plan is good enough, then they are able to handle Karmine Corp's attack. But if they're not, KC will just absolutely dominate them. And the final map of the Swiss stage between Karmine Corp and Paper Rex was Ascent, and it was absolutely fabulous. Martin really showcases absolute talent here, being the best player on the server, putting up 29, 19, and 8 with 327 ACS, and he just had some incredible rounds. On a defensive round, he was able to just get a peek right before the smoke pops, gets a head tap, dashes out. In the 24th round, he gets a 4K in order to bring Karmine Corp into overtime, and he just is absolutely absurd. His mechanics are so sharp, and he's just such a joy to watch. KC would finally break Paper Rex's pistol dominance, claiming both of them in this map, but Paper Rex were able to stabilize with a 7-5 first half, and coming back down 11-8, stringing together 4 rounds in a row to push the map to series point. Something went absolutely absurd, with the operator hitting some crazy shots and a classic flick shot that nobody else can hit but Something, and we'd have those in back-to-back rounds. Forsaken would continue to show why he is the best flex player in the world, as he just mowed everybody down with the fade, putting up 22, 18, and 15 with 261 ACS, and making it known that his Odin is deadly as ever. Although KC really challenged Paper Rex in the end and pushed it to overtime, it wasn't enough, as Paper Rex were able to push over the line and get the dub. Another shout out that I want to make just has to go to Monyet, as he was once again put on the Raze to be the solo duelist for this team, and he definitely created a lot of space for them. He also came in clutch, winning a 1v1 situation, and he got a lot of value out of his showstopper, including this very funny clip. Anyways, at the end of the day, we have found out that all of China and all of EMEA have been eliminated, and all that's left is Americas and Pacific. That's not to say that the other 2 regions are that much weaker than the other 2, but we have seen that overall strength and experience can play a large, strong factor in this. You have Sentinels, who have very well experienced players who have been in the scene for quite a long time, who have been revitalized and are looking very strong. You have Loud, who are world champions, who have a core that was one of the best of 2023, coming in only replacing one member. And you also have Paper Rex, same thing, 4 core that have made it into multiple deep tournament runs, including a grand finals at Champions last year, making it to a deep run. So it's not super surprising to see these teams here. The only one that kind of would be a surprise is Gen G, but their players are all quality players, and they have formed a very good team. And I think bringing in the coaching staff of HSK and Solo has really helped elevate this team, as they are quite disciplined. But yeah, that's just kind of a very long waffle wrap up of what I think of this tournament and how it's been going so far. And I'm just super excited for playoffs to kick off tomorrow. But with that being said, I think it is time to go and do my pick'ems for this matchup. And oh boy, let me tell you, I am so iffy, because like I said, every single one of these teams look really good. On my stream after watching the Gen G matchup, I said that Gen G should rightfully be considered a tournament favorite. Well, I think all 4 of these can be tournament favorites. But my argument was, if Gen G wins this initial matchup, they have a chance to win the entire thing, but they're really contesting with the Americas teams. That's kind of my feeling. But I believe in the Canon event. So despite my super glaze for Charon, I'm going with the Paper Boys, bro. I can't deny, bro. I'm not saying no. I feel like this is a really big gamble pick, but the series are 1-1. It's not as if these teams haven't faced off against one another. And I think both of these teams have made really good adjustments towards their maps and kind of fixing them. It's going to be interesting to see what they pick against one another, because we know that Gen G likes Icebox and they also like Breeze, which is kind of interesting. And Paper X don't necessarily really play either of those maps. And I think because Gen G is the higher seed, they might take it in the map ban, is my feeling. But if Paper X can somehow push it towards Sunset or Split, I think Paper X can take the matchup for sure. Sentinels versus Loud. Loud look extremely dominant. And the same thing can be said for Paper X and Gen G. Honestly, their stories are the exact same thing, right? Paper X and Loud both beat the teams in groups, and then both of them ran the gauntlet and looked incredibly well, and then they stormed through them in playoffs and beat them in grand finals. It's the same story. Script is leaking. We've seen it all. We know it all. But I have a big feeling in my nuggies, okay? This feeling in my nuggies. And that feeling is called hopium. Sentinels, although contested on a lot of their maps and have been pushed on a lot of their maps, and honestly have not been blown out. And I think that's something that is so important coming into a playoff setting. That's one of the things that you'll notice from the younger EMEA teams, which I think was kind of their drawback, was they're a bit young and inexperienced. Team Heretics, although taking early leads against Paper X, crumbled in the end. Carmine Corps, although played extremely well and had good plays, and especially with their unique Ascent comp of running triple initiator, but it still wasn't enough, as the rest of them were not able to step up besides Martine, and the experience of Paper X took over. So because of that, I'm going Sen City, baby. Sen City, baby. And then because I believe in the script, Paper X are going to take the upper finals and lose in the grand finals. Oh God. Yeah, Paper X are going to take the Sentinels matchup. We go to the lower round 1, Gen G versus Loud. We've seen this matchup before. Both teams look way different than they do now. I don't know if Loud can necessarily bait the Breeze pick again from them. I'm going Gen G. Yep, going Gen G. And then it's basically Sentinels versus the Pacific. What can they do? They're going to take it over Gen G. And I think that they're going to win the grand finals. Kind of bold, kind of not. I don't know. Depends. Let me know down below in the comments what you think and what your pick'ems are. I know I've kind of been not really doubting Sentinels too much, but the other teams I kind of have been doubting, but they've been proving me wrong. But Sentinels has been proving me right. So I don't know which way I'm really leaning. But okay, we'll go with Sen City, baby. Locked in, baby. My pick'ems are locked in. All right, there you go. Those are my pick'ems. Let me know down below in the comments again what your pick'ems are. What are your thoughts? And also, what are your thoughts on kind of this video, me just kind of talking about the games in a more casual wrap up? I'm kind of just experimenting and kind of figuring out what I want to do with this and all that style and whatnot. So your feedback would be very much appreciated. But other than that, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. And until next time, stay hydrated. Peace.